Gracie Jiu Jiusu rocks. Welcome to the Gracie Jiu Jiusu Rocks podcast, a podcast dedicated to Gracie Jiu Jiusu and all things Gracie, including self-defense, competition, anti-bullying, women's self-defense and empowerment, nutrition, and most especially, the people involved in Gracie Jiu Jiusu. This podcast is for the average Joe. It's for anyone who practices, trains, teaches, or just loves to talk about or hear about Gracie Jiu Jiusu. We'll explore the lives of Gracie Jiu Jiusu practitioners, how they got involved in the art, and what effect it's had on their lives. So buckle up and enjoy the ride. Welcome to episode 73 of the Gracie Jiu Jiusu Rocks podcast. As always, I'm your host, Marty Josie, and thanks for listening. My guests today are Ricardo Bayona and Alberto Robayo, who collectively make up Miloki Flow. And we'll talk to them in just a moment. But first, our Jiu-Jitsu quote. And that quote is, "In life, when presented with any situation, breathe, take your time, focus, and decide what to do." And that is from Rickson Gracie. What a great quote that is. We can all stand to heed that advice for sure in our everyday life as well as jiu-jitsu. Okay, before we get to the interview, I got to share with you a little bit about the last 2 weeks of my life, jiu-jitsu related. So a couple of weeks ago, I was fortunate enough to go up to Gaithersburg, Maryland, and do a Henner Gracie super seminar up at Evolve Academy, which is owned by Mike Moses, and always a pleasure to see Mike. But anyway, it was an all-day seminar with Henner Gracie, and also Brian T. City was assisting him, so really peak experience. The following weekend, we had Ryron Gracie in for a seminar in Durham, North Carolina. Actually, we had it at the wrestling room on the UNC campus, which was a great event. Really enjoyed it. And all last week, I was fortunate enough to be one of a handful of instructors who got to help out with teaching of the GST. We were helping Ryron Gracie teach about 65 plus law enforcement officers from around the country, everywhere from Key West to I think as far away as Washington. But anyway, they were from all over the states, and they were city police departments, representative, sheriff's departments, highway patrol, state troopers, one hospital police officer, and I think some other agencies represented as well. But just a really great event to be part of, doing that all week. Met some great people, and it was really that together with all the seminars I've been able to do lately has just provided me an incredible couple of weeks, not to mention my regular training. So really, really grateful for that for sure. All right, moving on. Ricardo Bayona and Alberto Robayo are both Gracie Jiu Jiusu black belts and the owners and founders of Miloki Flow, which integrates Gracie Jiu Jiusu, yoga, and functional movement and fitness. Their goal with creating Miloki Flow was to bring a flow of positive habits, healthy diet, and a richer enjoyment to their students' everyday lives. Now, Alberto's academy is in Narberth, Pennsylvania, which is a suburb of Philadelphia, and Ricardo's academy is in Key Biscayne, Florida. And this was the first time that I've interviewed two people at different remote locations at the same time, so it was pretty interesting to do so. Ricardo and Alberto have touched a great many lives with their jiu-jitsu, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy hearing about their journey and the work they do. Stay tuned after the interview for the Make a Difference, Make an Impact segment. Also, if you're enjoying the show, please remember to help spread the word by sharing the episodes on your social media. I really appreciate it. And without further ado, let's meet Ricardo and Alberto now. Okay, I'm speaking with Alberto Robayo and Ricardo Bayona. So welcome, guys. Thank you very much for taking the time to be with me today.
Thank you, Marty. Appreciate the opportunity. Great to be here.
Thank you so much for having us, Marty. It's great to be here, yeah.
Yeah, and Hedron says hello. I've been doing GST with him all week, and he said to certainly give you guys his best.
That's cool. Please do the same for us. Please send him our best.
For sure. So you guys have had an interesting journey in martial arts and jiu-jitsu. So let's start with where you guys met, where you're from, and how you got started in martial arts.
We met in university right out of high school back in Bogota, Colombia. We went to a business school. And and we've been friends ever since. That was a long time ago. And in university, we started training kickboxing with a friend and an instructor. And he introduced us to jiu-jitsu. He knew a few moves, like 3 or 4, maybe 5 moves. And he started showing us a little bit of what grappling was. And that's pretty much how we started, or at least I started martial arts and got introduced to jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking like 1997, something like that. Yeah, like a long time ago, and it was pretty cool because we'll escape from university, maybe skip like a class or whatever, and just go to the gym and train, and we'll do that, like more often. We'll see ourselves doing that often and just kind of like go on, like train in the gym and just kickbox like Alberto was saying. And that was how we got started.
It was funny too because we would go to the same gym and but I was a scrawny little thing, very wiry, and Ricardo, was all bulked up. We would go to the same gym, but he would lift weights. And I was into rock climbing a lot. So I would just go to rock climbing. They had an indoor wall there, so that's all I would do. Nice. And Ricardo said, like, do it, man. You're too scrawny, too skinny. Let me show you a few workouts. And, so he helped me out a little bit there.
Awesome.
With the weights.
So you were scrawny and he was kind of hulked up a little bit.
Yeah.
And what happened was that we started doing kickboxing for, I don't know, like a few months or so. And then our friend that was showing us kickboxing, like Alberto was saying, introduced us to a few jiu-jitsu moves, and actually to this guy that was like, very basic jiu-jitsu, I would say, like not even blue belt. But even then, he came to train with us one day, and he was like, yeah, I know a little bit of jiu-jitsu, and my older brother is a black belt, but he lives in the U.S., and he showed me, whenever I'm with him, he shows me a little bit of jiu-jitsu, so I can show you guys. And I was very skeptical at the time, and I was like, no, man, like you will never be able to take me down. I'll just kick you and punch you before you can take me down. And he was like, no, but why don't we try it? And I'm like, all right, let's do it. So we stepped on the ring. I did kick him a few times, but after like my second, third kick, he took me down, submitted me like very easily. And at the moment, I thought it was like a fluke. So I told him, like, why don't we do this again? And we did it like 4 times, and it happened over and over. And I was like, wow, like this guy is like very beginner, and he can like handle this situation, like nothing. It's like, this is very interesting. And that's how kind of like I got the fire to like start like, like researching more about jiu-jitsu and learning more.
Wow. So that was a real eye-opener.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
What was it about? Well, that was probably it, but was there anything else about jiu-jitsu in itself besides, I knew you were doing the kickboxing. What was it about jiu-jitsu that really kind of made you catch the bug, so to speak, and go that route full steam?
Well, for me, Marty, was the fact that I loved kickboxing, and I still do. I think it's super cool and very effective for a stand-up kind of like situation. But I had a problem with kickboxing, and it was that everything hurt. Like everything hurt constantly, you know, for weeks. And my shins and my elbows, and, you know. So I would love it, but I would have that in my mind that if I wanted to find something that I could do forever, and I was thinking like when I'm 40, when I'm 50, if I keep going with kickboxing at this rate, at this level, I am going to be just like so beat up that I'm not going to be able to like do this forever. So when we discovered jiu-jitsu, it was cool because I thought that the gentle art was more, you know, something that I could like keep doing and training for the rest of my life. So that's another thing that I really liked about jiu-jitsu.
That was pretty insightful to learn that or to come to that conclusion at such an early age. A lot of people, it takes, you know, many years of kind of being beat up a little bit or their body being abused to kind of come to that, but it didn't take you long at all to reach that conclusion.
Well, you know, I remember one day when we started, we only have our friends that knew a little jiu-jitsu sometimes. So what we would do is that we'll put like the fights, you know, on TV or in the computer, and we'll just kind of like try to emulate what they were doing. And Alberto and I didn't know nothing, and we'll just struggle through the moves. And I remember one day just kind of like looking at myself in the mirror and counting like how many bruises I had. So the beginning for us, I think, was rough, you know, but even then was easier than kickboxing just because of the, you know, kickboxing is very contact, you know, sport, like, so it was rough, but yeah, it was better than kickboxing in that sense for us, or for me.
Anything to add to that, Alberto?
Yeah, number one, no computer. It was VHS.
Right.
Back then,
that is true.
You wouldn't watch videos on your computer. And number two, for me, again, I was, you know, I'm still a scrawny little guy, but back then I was even more. And doing kickboxing, because I was on the smaller side, I would get beat up so bad all the time, and I could see that no matter how much I trained and how much effort I would put into it, if the other guy was bigger than me, stronger, and just knew a little bit, it would just dominate the fight. And then, you know, finding something that, like jiu-jitsu, where you use the ground to level everybody up. You know, that's the reason why you go to the ground, is because on the ground, everybody kind of goes towards the same level, regardless of strength or weight, if you know jiu-jitsu, of course. Was huge for me. It was a big revelation, and I fell in love with it then, because I could see the light at the end of the tunnel. Like, man, maybe if I train this and I get good at this, or put some time into it, it will give me an option to defeat or survive against somebody who's bigger or stronger. And that was it. That was the kind of the big thing that made me fall in love with jiu-jitsu.
Okay. Yeah, so jiu-jitsu is certainly the great neutralizer, for sure.
Correct.
So where did it go from there, guys? I know you, I think, split up at some point on your journey, and then came back together and went to the Gracie Academy. Or fill me in on the next part of your journey.
So Ricardo left first. So I don't know if Ricardo, you wanna talk about that, and then after that, then I left Colombia.
Yeah, basically, I was crazy about jiu-jitsu. I was doing my internship in Colombia. I mean, it's like I was working and going to school, like my last semesters. And I would find myself just kind of like, you know, surfing the web about, you know, jiu-jitsu and academies and moves and stuff. And I thought that I needed to get, you know, the training that I wanted, that I was craving so much. And it was easier to do it earlier rather than later in life, since, you know, I was a single guy, I didn't have any responsibilities. And I just decided to quit, you know, the job and just kind of like, you know, graduate. And I didn't even go to the ceremony, you know, to my graduation. I just kind of like did my last exam. And I knew I was good, and I just left. And, you know, I came actually here to Miami and trained with the Valente brothers for some time, and I that was my first kind of like introduction to jiu-jitsu, which was great because they're great teachers, very technical, and I fell in love even more with what I was learning, and I got my blue belt, and I returned back home, back to Colombia with my blue belt, which was like a huge accomplishment for me at the time, because a blue belt in Colombia at the time was like a black belt. There was nobody that even knew what jiu-jitsu was at the time in Colombia.
Nice.
I think that Alberto, short after I came back, that's when he took off, right?
Yeah. So Ricardo came back, and I was working in at a company doing marketing and sales, and it was a fun job. It was a cool job, but I started realizing that I didn't want to have the lifestyle that my boss had. I'm like, man, in 5 years, the guy makes great money, has really nice car, nice apartment, but that's not. I don't want to spend 80% of my time doing what he does. I don't believe there's value in that. So I started looking for other options, other opportunities, and shortly after Ricardo arrived back to Colombia, I left to Australia, to Sydney, Australia. Just trying to do different stuff, travel, be on my own, figure things out. And there I started training at a Gracie Baja gym in near Sydney, in a town called Manly Beach, and it was awesome. I would train in the morning, go to the ocean, go swim for a little bit, and be at the beach with friends, go sleep. Then I would go study university, or I would go work at a restaurant and then train a little bit more at night. So it was really nice, very nice time. And I got my blue belt too.
Nice. So when did you guys end up coming over or coming back to the States? I guess, Ricardo, for you coming back, and for you, Alberto, coming over to the States.
The story continues where, I was in Australia, Ricardo was in Colombia, we were talking all the time, and I hadn't been in Colombia for a while, so I wanted to go visit, my friends, my family in Colombia, and then go back to Australia. But I thought it would be a good opportunity to stop by in the U.S. and train for a little bit, and with Ricardo, that we would do that together. And so I think I went to Colombia first, and then on the way back to Australia, we stopped in Miami with Ricardo, and we started training together. The Valente brothers again, correct, Ricardo? Is that accurate?
Yeah. That's. I think that's what happened. I think I called you one day from Colombia, and I said, "Hey, we need to meet up," and kind of like, you're already a blue belt, I'm already a blue belt. Why don't we just get our black belts? Why don't we just go and do it? And if we're gonna do this like so seriously, why don't we go to the family that created the whole art and started the whole thing? And Alberto, it was funny, because we were deciding kind of like, our lives and the future, and it was just a simple phone call, and Alberto was like, yeah, man, that sounds awesome, let's do that. And I'm like, cool. So I have family in Miami, why don't we go to Miami, stop there, stay for like a few weeks, and I already trained there with the Valente brothers. Maybe we can train there for a little bit, and then keep going to our journey to California and just like train there with the Gracie family. And he said yes. So that's what happened.
Wow. So you guys are both up for the adventure and ready to go.
Yeah.
All right. So you make it out to California. Tell me what it was like there, just being in California first, and then being at the Gracie Academy. I think you were there for quite a number of years. So just kind of tell us a little bit about what all that was like.
So we arrived to California with $600 all together between the two of us. And we have a very good friend there, Eddie, who was kind enough to let us stay with him. And we start going to different schools and training at different places. We end up in the Gracie Academy, and we're like, man, so cool to be here. After all those years, hearing about the Gracies, watching them fight, we couldn't believe it. We finally made it to California when we were doing that. We go to the front desk, and then there was this guy called Matt, who's still a good friend of ours. The front desk, super nice, and all of a sudden we see this, young kid on a bike. Hey guys, what's up? Who are you? Blah, blah, blah. And he started asking us questions, and then, I'm Halek. He was Halek Gracie, and he was super nice with us. Took us to a private room, did like an hour private with both of us. We rolled for a whole bunch of time, and to be honest, the reason we ended up training there was because we had the best experience at the Gracie Academy. From the front desk to training to just everything was very welcoming, and I personally loved every part of it. So that's how we started training there. I don't know if Ricardo wants to add anything.
Yeah, I because I was researching so much on the internet, I already kind of saw like the academy. We're talking about the Carson Street Academy, like the original Gracie Academy in Carson Street. And like Alberto said, Halek just came in his bike, and he was super welcoming and super nice. And we trained, like Alberto said, and when we came out of the private room, Jordan was walking by. And I was just like starstruck, right? I couldn't believe it was Jordan Gracie. So I was like, wow. And he's like, Halek was like, let me introduce you to my father. These guys come from Colombia and they want to train with us. And so, I shook his hand and I said, it's an honor to meet you. It's really nice to meet you, this and that. And he's like, well, what's the story? And I told him we're here because we want to get our black belts. And he smiled and he said, well, with all due respect, this is not the first time I've heard this. So getting a black belt takes years of training and And I said, well, that's what we're here for. So, let's do it. It doesn't matter how long it takes, but we're going to do it. We're going to go through it. And that's kind of like the beginning of how everything started unfolding.
So how long were you guys at the academy, and when did you eventually achieve that goal of your black belts? We'll start with you, Ricardo.
Yeah, we were at the academy. Basically, what happened was that, we didn't have much money. So what we did is that Jordan very kindly offered us like a trade, and then we'll help out with like different missions, as he used to call them, special missions, It's like, go clean the bathroom. It's the special mission. So we would go and do that, sweep the mats, clean the locker rooms, whatever we could give a hand. And we did that, and we could train there, in exchange for helping out, which was great, and it helped a lot. And we're doing that for several years until one day, at the time in the Carson Academy, only the Gracies used to teach the classes. So how it used to go is that Hiron and Henner will teach, the adults, and then Halek will teach the kids mostly. And Halen was there, but he was still a kid, so not too much teaching, mostly like training. And one day there was this dad that talked to me, and he said, hey, I think someone was like, I think it was Halen, I don't remember, or Halek, I don't know, was going to teach my kid a private lesson, but, I guess he called in that he can't make it. And why don't you teach him? And I was like, well, I'm not an instructor. And he's like, man, it's just a 9-year-old kid. You can just roll around with him, whatever. We're already here. And I said, well, let me ask Jordan. So I went up to Jordan's office and I said, hey, Jordan, this is the situation. Do you think it's okay that I, roll with the kid? And he told me, are you an instructor? And I said, no, I'm not. Then, no, you can't. And I'm like, okay, so I want to be an instructor. Why didn't you teach me how to be an instructor then? And he's like, do you really want to be an instructor? I'm like, yeah. He's like, okay, so go to Henner's office and tell him that that he needs to teach you how to teach. And so we did that, and that's kind of like everything started, the whole instructor program, and eventually having more people that didn't have the Gracie last name teaching at the academy. And it was a process, a lot of, not a lot, but a few other students jumped in, and that's kind of like how all the instructor certification program that they have now, that's how kind of like it started. And so yeah, we started teaching little by little. I think we started with privates at the beginning, and then the beginner adult classes, and this is like years and years, and it was cool because then we didn't have to clean that much anymore, and we'll do more teaching, but we'll still clean and fold towels for sure. Like
right.
I remember Elio Gracie going to the academy and folding towels too, So when you see the old man doing it, you're like, yeah. So everybody would do it, and I don't recall exactly the year when we got our black belt. Well, I got it first, I think, right? How was that, Alberto? You remember?
Yeah, I think you got it. I got it 2012. I think you got it 2010, 2011.
Yeah, something like that was. Yeah.
Did you guys know it was coming when you got promoted to black belt, or was it kind of a surprise?
What happened was that when I received my brown belt, it took a long time, like probably 3 years more to get the black belt. So generally we'll have 2 belt ceremonies, one in the summer and one in the winter. And you always when you hold your brown belt for a few years, you think that, maybe, you'll get it in the next ceremony. So you always have the thought, but it didn't happen, and it didn't happen after the next one and the next one. So you kind of lose, okay, if it happens, it happens, but I wasn't expecting it that much, really. When it happened, I was very happy, of course. Yeah.
For me, the process was a little bit different because I got married, and then I had a kid, my oldest son, when I was still in LA, and then from there, we had a few struggles. It was hard to be in a city where you don't have family, and LA has very long commute, so things went. The only thing that was working for me at the time was training jiu-jitsu in the academy. So with my wife, we decided to move here to Philly, where she's from, and I moved to the area where I'm at right now when I was still a brown belt. So I had to train at different places, try to go back to the academy and keep training, and I wasn't expecting my black belt at all when I received it, but it was a huge surprise, and it was a great time, great moment for me. So,
well, what an incredible accomplishment for both of you guys. I want to go back for a second, and Ricardo, you mentioned Grandmaster Elio Gracie and the towels. I've heard from a lot of people that the Grandmaster was very serious about how he wanted his towels folded. So, Alberto, you want to comment on that, if you have any memories related to that?
Yeah, well, it was interesting because the things that Elio wanted, Horion had those same ideas or methodologies, and I believe it's the jiu-jitsu method. What's the best way to do something, and the most efficient way to do something. And when he was showing us how to clean the whole academy, he didn't send somebody else to show us. Horion himself did it. And he would show us how to clean the toilets, how to fold the towels, how to fold the gis, how to vacuum, how to sweep, how to clean the mat, how it should be done. And I remember, it took him no time to do everything, clean the whole academy. He did it very fast, very quickly, very efficiently. And then, when you meet Elio and you see him doing something similar, it goes from generation to generation. So it was very interesting.
There was one time when we were still cleaning and doing all the training there at the academy. We were on the mat, and Horion just approached me and asked me, "How's your front choke?" And I was like, "Well, I think it's okay. Yeah, I think it's good." and he said, no, I think it's not good. And he didn't even see my front choke, at the time. So I was like, why? What am I missing? And he's like, well, let me show you what you're missing. Just come walk with me. And we went, he guided me to the bathroom. And he showed me how the bathroom wasn't clean. And I was like, okay. And see, I can tell that your front choke is not good because the bathroom is not clean. And that didn't make sense at all for me at the time. I was like, what? Like, what does one thing have to do with the other? And he's like, look, if you clean the bathroom good, you're going to have a good front choke, because doing things good 100% is just like an attitude. That's the way you do things. So it doesn't matter if you're cleaning, if you're doing jiu-jitsu or whatever you're doing, just always do it 100% so that when people see the bathroom, they know you cleaned it because it's really clean. And I thought that was very insightful. That was very good. So I just kind of I just remember that. I thought it was cool to share.
That's very cool. What a great lesson to learn. I'm sure you never forgot it, and it's probably served you very well learning that valuable lesson.
Yeah, for sure.
It's all connected, right? The efficiency of jiu-jitsu and everything you do.
Exactly.
So, guys, tell me about, let's fast forward. Tell us about Miloki Flow. What is it, and how did it come to be? And just to let us know what that's all about.
Good. So the name has an interesting story. Miloki doesn't mean anything. It means something to us. Way back when we were learning from the videotapes, there was this tape of a Brazilian guy, a VHS tape, which was, a copy of a copy of a copy of the original. So it had a lot of lines. The sound wasn't great. It was hard to see clearly. And it was a Brazilian guy with a thick accent, speaking English. And we keep hearing like, oh, Miloki this, Miloki that. And when you want to do the Miloki, you do this. I'm like, man, the Miloki is a legit technique. And we say, oh, I mean, that must be the name of the technique. So we thought Miloki was a technique. Then you fast forward a few years when I was in Australia, and my instructor, Brazilian too, had a thick accent. I would hear him every now and then say Miloki. And I'm like, man, I haven't heard anybody else mention or say anything remotely close to Miloki.
Because it wasn't English, it wasn't Japanese, it wasn't Portuguese, we didn't know what it was.
That's funny.
So let me hear closely what he's saying. And I finally realized what he was saying. And I couldn't believe it. I was laughing, internally very hard. And I called Ricardo. He was in Colombia. I called Ricardo from Australia. Like, man, you know how we used to call this move the Miloki? And like, yeah. What is it? I'm like, do it. What they were saying arm lock. It was the arm lock. But with the accent in Portuguese, they tend to say army locky. And when you do it fast, it sounds Miloki.
Oh, that is
so funny. It was the arm lock, and it was Miloki, and we thought it was pretty funny. And then when we developed like our curriculum and the training program we wanted to have, we were looking for a name, and we thought that would encompass or tell a little story of like our journey in jiu-jitsu. And we thought it was a cool name to have, Miloki, because of that.
It's very cool. That's a hilarious story, and I had no idea. I'd seen the name, mainly written, and that's great. That's hilarious.
I don't know if Ricardo wants to talk about the curriculum or what we're trying to accomplish with that.
Yeah, so basically we saw, during the years that there were a lot of our friends and training partners that were getting hurt, shoulders, knees, and fingers, and all kinds of injuries. And according to like our teacher's philosophy, Hiron will always keep it playful, and he will only go hard, certain days of the week, and he will just kind of like do a flow roll the other days, and just kind of like allows people to do moves on him, and has no problem with tapping to lower belts, and which is like a first for me, because what I've seen mostly is like black belts cannot get tapped by anyone, and if they do, it's kind of like a big deal, But he didn't think about it that way, which I thought it was very smart of him. But even then, with that philosophy, people will still get hurt because, of course, there are egos involved. It's a contact sport still, and. So we thought that it would be a nice thing to incorporate a little bit of movement training into our curriculum, even though we were only beginners in movement, and we've taken some seminars, at the time when we started kind of researching more about just movement in general. And of course, any exercise, involves movement, and any activity, physical activity, involves movement. So we thought that if we, from the get-go, when we get a brand new student, we not only, kind of teach them the basics of jiu-jitsu, but we also train and do warm-ups in the basics of just movement. And that will probably help to create like a flow roll kind of mindset, which is what we're after, because we believe that if you have that mindset of just rolling and moving a lot, instead of only seeking the submission and the instant gratification that it gives you, that it gives everyone, you would actually learn jiu-jitsu faster, and you will see everything in perspective. To say it in other words, if you are only focused in that arm lock that you learned last week and you think is really cool, once you're looking so hard for that arm lock, it becomes too obvious for your opponent or for your training partner that you want it. So in that sense, it's going to be harder to get it. But if you just move around, maybe your opponent will fall behind your moves and you will catch him in a legitimate choke or arm lock or whatever other move. So, yeah, for instance, for me, I got hurt. My shoulder and my pec muscle got a little bit torn from my biceps. And I couldn't train for months, for 3 months. It was painful to just sit on the mat and watch everybody train and not being able to do it. So I was in a hurry to come back doing, therapy and when I was able to come back, I had to put my arm in my belt, just to remind myself that I couldn't use it, because in the moment you don't remember and you use it and, I might get hurt again. So I started rolling with only one arm. And, I remember telling Hidon one day after training, Hidon, I've been training with one arm because, I got hurt. And I actually do better. It's crazy. I can catch more people and I can see more things because I have to go slower. And I just have to go and he smiled and he's like, I've been telling you these all along, but you never listen. It was funny. So that kind of opened my eyes, because sometimes, as instructors, we want to convey that idea of the flow roll, of going slower and all that, because it helps people. But, people sometimes don't listen because, they're too much involved with the submission and tapping and winning. Everybody likes to win, So that's kind of how the curriculum came about. So basically, Miloki Flow, it's an arm lock flow, like Alberto was saying the story, and it's just preparing people for the mat, for self-defense, and everything that we learned at the Gracie Academy and all through the years, but also, giving a little insight, a little bit of blue belt movement training, because we're only blue belts in movement. There are people that are very good, in movement, and they're black belts and do incredible things that we can only dream about. But even then, even though we can't do those incredible feats, just kind of being able to have good posture and being able to do crawls properly and, the basics of climbing and stuff like that, it will help a lot in jiu-jitsu and in everything in general that involves movement. So, yeah, I don't know if Alberto has any addition to that.
Yeah, just to add to that, at the time or before that, I started my school here in Philly under a different name, and I could see that the biggest struggle for my students and myself was knowing how to move efficiently and putting into practice the idea of natural body movements. Yeah. Taking away the concept that in order to move well, I need to be flexible or more or stronger or more explosive. Is with what I have, how can I move better? Yeah, and And that's what we wanted to bring, is that functionality of movement. So functional movement towards jiu-jitsu, because jiu-jitsu at the end of the day is movement. How can we translate the idea of this movement and jiu-jitsu and these techniques to our students in a better way, so they don't get hurt, but they also understand how to move their body so they can spin when they're doing an arm lock from the mount. So we started investigating and doing research and trying to come up with different ways of showing students how to move for jiu-jitsu or for everyday life, picking something up, crawling in your attic space, carrying an object, lifting, which all at the end of the day translates to jiu-jitsu and vice versa.
Mm-hmm. There's a cool thing that I just kind of remember, and is that when you train in movement, because movement is like Alberto said, basic to every sport, you start realizing that you don't need a mat to have fun. Like if you're walking on the street and you see a little edge and I'm thinking like, can I balance on that? And people will be looking at me weird, like, why is this like adult like trying to balance on that thing, like, or jumping, could I jump from here to there? And so I think that these basic movements should be taught in high school or, in school. And people should, kids should be able to know how to climb a tree, how to jump, how to break a fall. Very basic movement stuff that just makes life easier, better, and more fun, because obviously if you have the mat, great. Mm-hmm. But you don't need the mat. You just need the awareness of moving consciously, and it becomes fun just to move around.
I think that's so important. The world becomes your playground instead of, you're thinking, okay, there's one place to go, quote, work out or train, and then the rest of the time you're just out and about. But now, like the example you just shared, there's all kinds of little opportunities all around us at all times to just have fun with movement. I think it's a huge thing, movement, and I am glad to hear that, how much you guys are into it and spreading it. I think most of us in our society in this modern era, we sit a lot, and that takes its toll on us in our lives, just sitting and being kind of flexed at the hips. And we get into all these linear patterns, whether we're doing our workout, which involves maybe lifting weights for a lot of people and very linear fashion of moving, or if it's body weight, same thing a lot of times. But we tend to just have very linear movement patterns. And I think it's kind of a lost art, if you will, the functional movement and the free range of movement of your joints and your body and your muscles. So I think it's really great what you're doing, adding that aspect, and I think we could all use more of it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. Thank you for that. I think that what's funny is that in the UFC now, when you see people, professional fighters training for their fights, they're doing like obstacle courses and, crawls and all these kind of like it's, of course they lift weights and they do that. But I think that before, a few years ago, it was more about doing whatever martial art you did and doing it good, and learning about all the other ones that you need to do for mixed martial arts, and just a lot of gym and weights and being strong and maybe taking runs and stuff like that. But now trainers and fighters have come to the realization that you can be strong and push a lot of weight, but can you be strong at the same time that you're getting kicked in the leg? Yeah. Can you keep the balance? How strong are your ligaments? How fast can you turn directions without popping your ACL? See, that it's a different kind of strength. And nowadays I see all the fighters, or not all of them, but some of them that are very elite fighters, professional training, like obstacle courses and all kinds of things that just like improve their movement, their agility, their balance, weight distribution. And it's just, I think they're, in the right direction. I think that makes us stronger all around.
I agree for sure. What about the aspect of breathing? Do you guys incorporate that or get into that much with your training?
Breathing is part of movement. We often talk about how long can you go without food, how long can you go without water, and then how long can you go without breathing. So breathing, when you answer those questions, becomes the most essential component of our survival. So if you're not breathing properly, you're depriving your body of energy, and we believe that therefore breathing has to be incorporated in your training, and it goes linked to the idea of staying relaxed and staying aware and being present. So yeah, breathing it's absolutely a huge part of movement and jiu-jitsu in general, and awareness. So we incorporate a few breathing exercises as well into what we do.
Yeah, and we do it for kids and for adults, because with kids, like sometimes they get in stressful situations if they're getting bullied or, they're not allowed to play. They come to a playground as a new kid in school and the other kids, they don't let him play, and this could be stressful, or maybe they have an exam, a test at school or something. And, we all tend to start breathing faster and, through our mouths when we're like a little nervous or something. And just teaching kids the importance of just having 3 deep breaths, So in every class, I try to tell my kids like, okay, you just spar, you're tired, let's take 3 deep breaths and just kind of like calm yourselves down. And if they have a presentation or something like that, what do you need to do before the presentation to calm yourself down? Breathing. So this is something that if we teach them early, we can, and it's so basic, right? So easy, so logical. They can like kind of like keep going and just kind of like calm themselves down and just bring awareness to their life, to the moment, just by consciously breathing.
Very nice. I think it's wonderful exposing kids to that type of awareness, early on in their lives and developments. Very nice. So kudos to you for that. So what do you guys do off the mat? Any hobbies besides jiu-jitsu, or do you have time to do anything else besides jiu-jitsu? So let's start with you, Ricardo.
Yeah, I think that Hicks and Gracie used to say that if you have to have a hobby, if jiu-jitsu is your main thing, you need to have a hobby. And I think he serves, if I'm not wrong. And I think it's true, because even though you can love jiu-jitsu, and I of course I love jiu-jitsu, but like anything else, if you only do jiu-jitsu, you might get burnt out. So when I was in LA, probably in my most like busy time, where I'll just like train in the morning, teach in the morning, train at night, teach at night, all day, 100% jiu-jitsu, there will be points, where I was like feeling burnout. And photography for me, it's been something that, I'm very passionate about also. And it kind of gives me that outlet to just like do something different and experiment like with different things. Photography, I think I've been doing photography longer actually than I've been doing jiu-jitsu. So I love photography. I do it as a hobby. I have a little blog where I put my photos. Now you have Instagram, so you can show them. So I do that also. I love photography and jiu-jitsu.
That's awesome. Do you want to say where they could find your blog, the listeners?
Oh, just my name. Okay. It's just my name in Instagram.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And Alberto?
Well, for me, I have 3 kids, and they keep me pretty busy when I'm not on the mat. But it's it's just a great life project, and very fulfilling and rewarding opportunity, to have a family and have kids, and instill everything that you can in them that's good and positive. So that's a great, I guess that's the biggest part of my life right now. And then, I try every year to be a beginner in something. And so I was doing skydiving for a little bit. I was skydiving. I was doing that, which was great. I also, used to have a motorcycle and go motorcycle riding. And lately I've been playing around with building furniture. So I like to grab some wood and make a table or make a bench or a desk, stuff like that, playing around with that. So it's, it's trying to find something where you're a beginner and learning new stuff and always improving yourself. But I think, it's definitely important to have a hobby or find another passion that becomes the outlet of your outlet.
Yeah, well, first of all, with 3 kids, I consider you very brave because I have 2, and that's a handful, so I can only imagine 3. But I can't. I have no idea how people that have 5 or 6 do it at all. But
I would love to have more.
yeah.
Yeah, but I'm not authorized.
Not authorized. Well, I got to say, I love your mindset about being a beginner in something every year. I think that's really refreshing and really cool. So I may have to adopt that myself.
There's nothing like being a white belt.
That's right. Always get out of our comfort zone is the best way to grow, right?
Exactly.
That's right.
All right. So who's had the biggest influence on your lives? And this can be personal or professional or both. So, Alberto, would you start with that, please?
Sure. You know what? I've had many people influence me at different stages of my life. And that's always something I keep looking for. It's what type of person or information or situation I wanna be influenced by or learn from or all of that. So at different stages, different moments, I've been influenced by different people personally and in business. I think when I was a teenager in university, now that you ask, it's funny to recall it, but Ricardo actually had a big influence in me. Just because he introduced me to a certain way of thinking through some books he suggested I read that were very mind-opening and kind of exposed me to a different way of approaching things and introspection and just like self-analysis. And so Ricardo had a big influence on me in that part of my life, which I'm very grateful for. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah, man. And he also helped me in university. He would read the books and then tell me what they were about. Remember that?
So basically, what you're saying is that I did the studying, and he would come like 30 minutes before the exam, literally, and he would be like, "Hey, what is this exam about?" So I'll just give him my, my summary, and then we'll do the exam, and he'll get better grades than me.
Oh, that's funny.
Efficiency, man. That's jiu-jitsu. See, I've been doing jiu-jitsu for a long time. I just didn't know about it. But yeah, and moving forward, Horion, of course, and Hiron and Henner, and this philosophy of not just jiu-jitsu but life in general, that's had a big influence in me, both personal and in the business side, because through them I learned how to run a school and all of that, and learn jiu-jitsu, do jiu-jitsu, teach jiu-jitsu, which I'm very grateful for. I also remember that there was this teacher in university who just said one thing. And it's like, hey, you guys here, because Colombia is a third world country, so you guys here that have the opportunity to come to university are privileged. And because you are privileged, you have the responsibility to do something with it that's positive for the world, the community, the people that you can influence or I don't know how you say that, affect or give something to. Mm-hmm. So you better make something out of it. And that stuck with me forever. And I think that was a great little phrase that I always keep in mind. And lately I listened to this guy in the radio. His name is Dennis Prager, and he he has very insightful things, and it's a very cool program. He's out of LA. He's I like what he says, how he sees life. He's I think I consider him to be very wise in the way he presents his thoughts, and I like a lot of what he writes and what he says. So that'll be it for me, pretty much.
Nice, Ricardo.
Yeah, I think that one Mexican writer would have to be like one big influence in me was Carlos Castaneda. And I bring him up because through his books, I read, a lot of his books, I think all of them. And he was like writing in the 70s, in the kind of like Woodstock era and all of that. And he was just kind of like opening eyes for people in regards to what you do in life. It's not that serious. Like, don't take life so serious because you're gonna die anyways.
Right.
So it was scary for me at the moment to kind of like quit my job and just kind of like pack everything and just leave the country and take on this journey. And it's a wonderful decision now that I look back to it. And I think that I got a lot of the, kind of like my guts to do it out of like reading his books and realizing that I would probably be sorry if I, didn't live the kind of life that I dream of living, that I rather fail but attempt what I really wanted to do instead of trying to keep it safe and live like, let's say, a normal life, like a corporate job. And, not anything wrong with that, like people that have passion for what they do in a desk, it's awesome. And I have utmost respect for that. But for me, it was, doing jiu-jitsu and traveling and just kind of like, and that gave me a big push to be able to do it, because for me it was scary to do it, but I decided to do it. And down the line when I was teaching and living this jiu-jitsu life, I started teaching this guy that was a politician in LA, and now he's one of my dear friends. His name is Rudy Sbornik. And he'll come to learn jiu-jitsu, but at the end of the class I would always learn more from him. I think that he learned really from me because he would like do the moves and then we'll just sit and just talk and have like great stories about life. And this guy like loves history and he's always filling me in and like why things are the way they are. He loves the United States. His family were immigrants from Croatia, so fisherman, and he was the first one that went to the university from his family, and he ended up being like this big politician in California, and very insightful. I would enjoy every single private lesson with him because I would learn from him more than probably he would learn from me. So he was a big influence when we decided to open our own gyms and stuff. He helped me a lot, with all the planning and big thing. We still talk all the time, and I'm happy because I'm going to see him in LA. I'm going to travel to LA soon, like in July. So I'm going to see him. I haven't seen him for a long time. And yeah, it will have to be him too.
Very nice. Sounds like you guys have had some really great influences and inspiring people coloring your world, so to speak, and giving you some guidance in this adventure we call life. So
yeah, it's so important to have mentors, I think, like it's important. Like if you're doing something that it's like medicine, you have to go to med school. You have to, right? But if you're doing something more on your own, or you can like nowadays just like if you have mentors and you can just learn so much from the internet. It's just I think we're in a blessed era where there's so much information, free information, that you can mostly learn anything you want in the internet. I think that's so fascinating. I always listen to this podcast also that this is from Nathan Chan. It's called the Founders Podcast. Mm-hmm. And he just brings like so many like entrepreneurs and people, interesting people that talk about all kind of different things. So yeah, so I listen to him a lot too.
Yeah, I agree. This is a very unique time we live in, and the circumstances, so different than ever before. You can literally learn anything you want, and there's no shortage of information. But finding some really good guides and models who are doing it successfully, but also doing it ethically and the way you would like to do it, and not just succeeding for money's sake or whatever it may be. Doing it how you want to do it. Finding those models and those mentors are very, very important. So.
Right. I agree.
All right, but so as we're bringing this close to closing, guys, just share with us the biggest lesson you've learned through jiu-jitsu, and what about jiu-jitsu has brought you the most joy? Ricardo?
I think I'll have to say that the most joy comes from seeing like a student smile when you just kind of like adapt something, change something, and they just smile because it's like that changed everything, in the move. And, when you see like the kids going and they probably come with a bad posture, looking down, maybe very shy, and after a few months of training, you see how like they got a bunch of friends now at the academy, and they're all out, and they don't even let you teach class anymore because they're so confident now, and they're just like all over the place. That would have to be the thing that gives me the most joy out of like the jiu-jitsu lifestyle, just like how you see the change in people, like it's something positive, and it just brings them confidence, and they start to like focusing for longer periods of time, just because jiu-jitsu is cool to learn. So kids are like, okay, I can pay attention to this, and in the process of learning jiu-jitsu, they just learn how to learn anything because they just keep the focus longer. So I think that will have to be the thing that gives me the most joy about the jiu-jitsu lifestyle.
Wonderful. Alberto?
Yeah, for me, I think the people I've met and I came in contact with, and the students you end up having, and the relationship you build with all these incredible people from different backgrounds, and it's like nothing else you can experience, like that jiu-jitsu brotherhood. But once you start teaching it, it makes it a little bit deeper and more interesting. And I think also the failures or the struggles in jiu-jitsu can be kind of like extrapolated to life itself. Like it's of course I'm not proud of my struggles and my failures, but I'm proud of my attitude towards them. How you get back up and try it again, or try a different version, or try to improve it, and in the process you improve yourself. And I think that's a big part of being successful at anything, is learning to fail and take that failure and make it into a positive. So that's been a big part of me. In jiu-jitsu, you lose so much, you lose all the time, and then you have injuries and you have struggles and all these things, and then you get back up and you train and you make it better and you keep going and you just never quit.
Excellent. All right, so to sum it up, bring it to a close, and this may be a little close to the question about the most joy, but what in your life are you the most proud of up to this point? And is there anybody that you want to thank or shout out to that you haven't already mentioned?
I think that what I'm most proud of is to be able to live my passions. And in a day-to-day basis, I think I'm blessed to practice jiu-jitsu, to teach jiu-jitsu, to do my photography, and, just like being able to live the life that I dream of. And that's what I think I'm most lucky for and grateful for, and yeah, that will be my biggest accomplishment.
Yeah, for me, I think I'm proud of, again, my like the struggles and the failures I've had, and how I managed them, and the journey itself that has brought me to this city and this place, and having the family I have, which I love, and I'm very proud of my kids and how they're doing, and seeing them become the people they're becoming, and proud of my wife for all the support she has given me through this journey. Because it hasn't been easy, but it's had more rewards than anything. So that would be, I think, what I'm the proudest of in a personal level, and what I'm. If I haven't mentioned my kids and my wife before, I'm very grateful for them.
There is so much people to thank. It's crazy. Yes. Because at every moment in your life, you're getting influenced, and you're like getting tips and messages from life through people and through the things that happen. But of course, I think that in the early stages, I had a cousin, that really influenced me positively and started me to like look into things that I didn't before. His name's Juan Pablo, so I thank him for that. And
our parents, starting with our parents, like they do so much for you.
so much. My dad, that left us early, but learned a lot from him, and of course my wife right now that just like supports me in everything I do, and is there for me all the time, and I try to be there for her as well. So I'm thankful for that, and my dear friends that I have, friends like from back home, from like forever, people that time goes by and you don't see them in years, and when you see them again, it's like not a second has passed, so thankful for them, thankful for so many things, so many people that of course the Gracie family, kind of like welcomed us and gave us the opportunity to just live that lifestyle from day one. Thankful for them as well. So a lot of people to thank.
I was gonna say Eddie that welcomed us into his house. He didn't know what he was getting into, and
yeah,
and introduced me to my wife. Thanks to him, great. Yeah, Eddie was a big part of it.
Yeah, Eddie was Trish, your wife, was Eddie's roommate. So that's how they got to know each other.
So Eddie had a big impact in your life.
Yes, sure. I joke. I got tired of sleeping on the couch, and
you did an upgrade there.
Yeah, an upgrade.
Well, guys, I think it's so cool that the relationship you guys have had, the friendship over all this time and all these years, and all the twists and turns and the adventure that you've had, and now having Miloki Flow together is just really awesome. And I want to thank you for sharing some of about your life, insights about your life, and letting us get to know you guys better. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Marty. It was great, to be here and kind of share these things. And thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, Marty. Yeah, man, it was a great opportunity. It was great to be able to share some of this with the people who listen to your podcast. And thanks for the opportunity.
My pleasure. And keep on impacting lives, guys. Doing great. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Marty.
Absolutely. Have a good one. Thank you.
Okay, really enjoyed doing that interview with Ricardo and Alberto. Two exceptional individuals, for sure. Stay tuned now for the Make a Difference, Make an Impact segment. Okay, time for the Make a Difference, Make an Impact segment. Let's start with a quote. Almost everything will work again if you unplug it for a few minutes, including you. And that's from Anne Lamott. So I really love this quote. It speaks to, our need to unplug and to decompress, reset. And we all need this in our lives. Let me share a quick story with you. A lecturer was presenting to an audience about stress management. And to illustrate a point, she took a pitcher of water and poured a glass of water from it. She then took the glass and stretched out her hand straight to the side and asked, "How much does this glass of water weigh?" And she received various answers back as to the weight. She then replied, "The absolute weight doesn't matter. It depends on how long you try to hold it. If I hold it for a minute, that's not a problem. If I hold it for an hour, I'll have an ache in my arm. And if I hold it for a day, you'd have to call an ambulance. In each case, it's the same weight, but the longer I hold it, the heavier it becomes. And that's the way it is with stress. If we carry our burdens all the time, sooner or later, as the burden becomes increasingly heavy, we won't be able to carry on. As with the glass of water, you have to put it down for a while and rest before holding it again. When we're refreshed, we can carry on with the burden." I really love this story. It really does illustrate the importance of resetting and taking breaks. It's so easy for us to get caught up in our daily lives and all the things we have to do, what we have to accomplish, the fires that we have to put out. But as this story illustrates, it's not even so much what stresses we have in our lives or what burdens we have to deal with. It's the ongoing, constant carrying of these weights that really start dragging us down and taking their toll. If we make it a habit, if we cultivate the habit of daily stress breaks, and these can take various forms, but if you simply do nothing but stop what you're doing for 1 or 2 minutes, get quiet, sitting or even lying down, and taking some nice deep breaths, this will go a long way in pushing the reset button in your body, in your mind, and in your life. So never underestimate the power of just small breaks throughout your day. So going forward throughout your day, your week, your month, I encourage you to be aware of the burdens you're carrying and make sure to schedule in times proactively to unplug. I think by doing this, you'll find your life much more productive, happy, and fulfilled. And that's going to do it for this edition of the show. As always, I thank you for listening. I appreciate all feedback, so if you have feedback, please don't hesitate to give it. If you have ideas for the show or for guests, please let me know about those. You can leave feedback on the website at www.graciejujitsurocks.com. You can also leave feedback on iTunes, and while you're there, make sure to rate the show. It helps us with our standing in iTunes. If you haven't liked us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter, please go ahead and do that. And don't forget to share the episodes on your Facebook and social media. Again, thanks again for listening, and until next time, this is Marty Josie, and I'll see you on the mat.